And finally, we come to the last variation. This is absolutely diabolical romance. It contains such passion, such a cry of love. There is probably no other person in the piano literature which transmits such an apotheosis of romance. Even Rachmaninoff, who works almost 100 years later, who is very open-hearted, does not as potentially speak the language, the cries of aching love, outcrying it. He always wails them with some kind of harmonization. Well, maybe somewhere in the early pieces, like an elegy, he achieves this openness and the tension of love cry, but more or less because of useful primitive, because elegy Rachmaninoff is rather primitive, quite childish melody. Here we see a mature man who expresses a passion in a perfect relief, but far from primitive. In a polyphonic form, the scene contains a great deal of realism. We hear, like in a cinema again, we see here two female voices, two obviously female characters, a duo. We can fantasize as we please, and knowing that Schumann is very faithful in his fantasy to all images that is one way or another actually drawn from his own life. Paganini lived constantly, and I believe that two beautiful women portrayed here, probably Clara and Ernestina. It's always the same characters he takes from his life. It's definitely likely he chooses two very valued women of his life who are woven together in love in a duet that supports the poet. And all this happened to the accompaniment of a Spanish guitar. It is so romantic, there is nowhere else to go. So it all started with the accompaniment, of course, of Spanish guitar. The first string. Busting. Therefore, we must, of course, completely try to imitate overlaps on any instrument. This is a first lady appears. But the theme is not forgotten. A lady appears framing the theme of death. This is such a beautiful philosophical aesthetic, my dear friends. I wish that you could feel this even half as much as the way I feel it. I live in this work. I live in the consciousness of Schumann, and Schumann lives in my consciousness. But it's all the same. It is so clear, so obviously beautiful. Look at this great mental, artistic, philosophical work behind this. Women and death, philosophy, aesthetics, ladies, love that frames the theme of death. After all, only on one of these ideas you can write the whole philosophical analysis of romanticism. Now the second muse lady will appear. And divinely through the pianissimo on this counterpoint, they merge in a duet, in a perfect harmony, so they don't contradict each other. Twice he repeats this song, singing, and then we move on. We move on to such a climax here, about which I spoke, where the author's cry is already breaking. Two female voices amplify, growing the intensity of sounding and then breaking through the theme, through the same register and the same string they were used for female voices, the voice of the author, who shouts, cries about love, breaks through. Well, probably about love and death, since the theme of death is engraved here. So go to this crazy climax where it's just impossible to overdo, because it's a cry of life, it's all. Cry of a soul, love and death. Well, can something be better spoken via our European tonal system on the piano? In my opinion, no. In my opinion, nothing can be said better about love and passion, love and death, and all these romantic passions of the 19th century. And according to the song culture. And after the repetition ends. I apologize for the constantly failing piano, but no instrument can withstand such an attack. This is, of course, not the problem of the instrument, but it is a problem of the incarnation of the Schumann's ideas on the conservative instrument, which is modern piano is. No piano can stand such an attack, as in general what he writes in Symphonic Etudes. Therefore, we cannot interrupt our shooting every 15 minutes on the setting of the piano. So do not judge me, dear ladies and gentlemen, but this work is still waiting for its instrument. Whether it will be the instrument of the future, some piano with incredible computer instruments, with amplification of sound that can spread to the stadium audience, and where perhaps there will be no longer strings, but just the microchips, the computer build-up, some completely different technology. But it requires a piano that will tear this space, literally tear this space apart, dear friends. Schumann is a utopian, you have to understand. This is one of the greatest utopians who ever lived in the world and who ever composed music. Therefore, of course, he did it all. If his colleagues Liszt and Chopin were absolutely tied to the piano, and in general, Liszt especially worked for the piano rather accessible, quite primitive, here we see the music of the spheres, yes, and probably even our electric guitars to the electric instruments and synthesizers are not suitable for the task at hand here. I think you really require something from the future. So we hope that someday there will be such instrument that will withstand what Schumann projects here, what requires to be projected of them, so on and so forth, and all these endless chords. And then the Bulgakov region comes. So we now proceed to a holy campaign for the Holy Grail, which Schumann's brilliantly embodied. So, let's have a last look on what we went through. And let's see what happened. Let's return to the subject of the soul. What happened to the modern soul? So, our theme. Is not decrypted, not understood, not played, because knightly traditions are lost. This is not read, and not a romance of knights. Then we have the idea of Frankenstein to revive a dead hero. Such a gloomy motorized electric current is passed through the dead theme. This idea is usually well interpreted by many performers. But already the next thought, where Schumann retreats to the theme of the memory in the same variation, is no longer read as it was conceived by Schumann, as a departure from reality, as a frivolous modulation, which, as I have already told many times, it turned to a silent movist, went to restaurants. A fun, engaging theme of departure from reality, not usually understood. Then we have variations of what I call the name of Edgar Allan Poe. Oversaturated, not read, the architecture is broken, the aesthetic are broken, everything is broken, no romance, overweight, the texture is supersaturated, overloaded, bad rubato, bad taste, dead soul, not read at all. Paganini. The pearl of romantic creativity, not read. Instead, we have an evil top register where sportsmen and musicians compete in hitting the right top notes. Then we have a chord song, not read. And there is no inner freedom, not even outer freedom. Next, we have Fan Tulip. Coquetry and flirting. Real, frank coquetry, unread. There is no coquetry, no grace, no courage, no chivalry. There is nothing. The next song. No freedom, not read. Further toccata-like happiness. Funny, fun, easy, Gloria, Gloria. Here's for the first time the theme of the hero's memory appears in the image of undisguised humor. Here it is. Schumann here simply laughs, but laughing from happiness, not read. Further, the next variation is a nod to Baroque masters. The beauty of stadium aesthetics. Freddie Mercury in person, not read. And then we have the Hungarian. Hungarian dances, balls, not read, not understood, not decrypted. Mad romance, not understood. So we passed briefly all the content. And what have the musicians read over the past 150 years? Gloomy motor skills. Just think about it. What of all of this cosmic diversity, the many facets of a full-fledged European individual soul? But today, we have only a gloomy motility in our modern human soul. Please consider this topic, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much.